Hello guys, in this video we will look at off-grid solar systems. So we have two kinds of solar systems. One kind is that it works together with the grid, the network from the government supplying electricity to private housing. And we have off-grid, which does not have support from the grid. So, what are the advantages of doing off-grid systems? Well, the advantage is that if the grid is bad, the solar system is not affected by it if you have an off-grid system. And a bad grid can actually happen quite a bit in Thailand. That you have bad voltage, for example. They put transformers that are too small that can't support the neighborhood, and then your voltage becomes bad and low and creates problems that what we call brownouts. And this can even hurt your appliances and destroy computers and cause flickering in lights, etc. If a house or area is affected by this, an on-grid solar system would not be good, because an on-grid solar system is relying on proper voltage. If it drops below, say, 190 volts, it's gonna have problems. Now there are ways to mitigate that with voltage protectors and stuff like that, but that basically just turns off the solar when the voltage goes, say, under 190 volt, and then obviously if it does that a lot, you're going to be left without the solar system when that happens. So that is obviously not good if you have a bad grid. So then an alternative is off-grid, that you are not relying on the grid at all. So that's certainly the biggest and by far the most important advantage by off-grid. Another advantage is that you can have it anywhere. Where there's no grid, you can have it. You can have it on a mountaintop, in a boat, on an island, wherever. That's certainly a very big advantage. Let's say you want to have a cottage or even live on a very remote area without grid. You can actually then use an off-grid solar system and have very nice electricity with that, assuming that you plan ahead and make a system that actually covers what you want to cover. And we'll get back to that later, how to plan sizing and everything. Another advantage of off-grid systems is that you have independence, meaning that whatever the government wants to do with pricing of electricity, things like that, or let's say the grid for a long time goes down, you are not affected by that at all. So you will be completely independent, and whatever happens with other things, you will be completely separate from those things. Okay, so what are the advantages? The disadvantages. The first disadvantage is that we do not have the grid to support spikes in load. So what does that mean? Well, it means that when you start something, for example, when you start a big pump or something, it's gonna have a big spike. So let's say, even though a water pump might have a rating of 1000 watts, it could spike up to 2000 watts in the beginning. It's what we call inductive load. Now, if your solar system is already sustaining a load, giving electricity to a load of many thousands of watts, and then suddenly you add many thousand on top of that, you could overload the inverter. And then the solar system will shut down. You have to turn something off and you have to restart to make it work again. So on an on-grid system, you have the grid to help in those situations. That's a huge advantage of an on-grid system, that when you have a spike in load, the system just automatically supports that load from the grid. So it's very, very convenient and easy, but on off-grid systems, you actually have to predict the spikes and make sure those spikes do not go over the limitations of the total power in the solar and the battery. So you have to plan ahead in that. And another related issue, which is sort of the same thing but caused by lack of power due to weather, rain and clouds, is that when you have that's why the curve this curve illustrates that when you have a cloudy weather, for example, it goes down here, you can think of that as some clouds passing over the panels. Obviously the power from the panels will be a lot less, and you either have to be below, the load has to be below the dip, or you have to have power in the batteries to support it. Now, normally in the morning, the batteries will be empty, so you need to be under this dip to be able to support the load. And then later in the day, on a normal system, the batteries will start to fill up, and you'll be able to, maybe this one, you'll be able to support from the battery. But here, that's going to be difficult. Unless you size with an enormous battery bank. But it's quite difficult to do that because it gets expensive, you know. So that's why that off-grid systems need support from backup also, like another source of electricity that we will get to that later. That's obviously another disadvantage with off-grid, but all of these disadvantages can be overcome with planning and proper sizing of everything, but it certainly is a disadvantage. Second point there, need big battery bank to support spikes and for cloudy days. Yeah, we touched upon that. With an on-grid or hybrid system, if you want to use batteries, you do not need the batteries to support the whole night, which makes it cheaper to buy it and invest in a hybrid system that has on-grid support. But on an off-grid system, you need much bigger batteries because you need to have them support the load in the whole night. Unless you're planning to run generator every night or many nights, which is not really a good situation because then cost becomes very high for the gas or diesel, and also it becomes extremely noisy if you have a diesel generator. So normally that's not a good choice. Generators are used for emergency situations like rain season without sun for a long time, things like that. But I would never plan an off-grid system to use a generator every night. That I would absolutely not recommend that, due to cost and noise and just maintenance, and you will have the generator break down, because generators break down much more often than solar systems. A well installed solar system, once it's balanced and running well, it will have very little maintenance. But generators are a completely different story. A lot of maintenance, break down a lot, and you need to be able either to do that maintenance yourself or have somebody close by. If not, then when the generator breaks down, you have nothing. So, yes, this is related to what we have been talking about at this point. Need backup, for example, generator. In theory, it could be something else like a windmill or, an alternative energy source. But in most cases, it's a generator. And that generator has to be sized so that it can handle the load that you want. Normally, that means a reasonably big generator. Obviously, it can be sized according to the system and needs you have. So, but you need a generator, and for most people, a gasoline generator will be the best choice because diesel generators are extremely noisy. We have actually installed automatic diesel generators on systems before, and it does work well, but it's extremely noisy. So unless you have a very good plan for that, it's much better to use gasoline. Historically, off-grid systems have had a lot of maintenance because systems have had subpar battery management and also big banks of gel batteries that need a lot of maintenance in themselves, because you have to control temperatures, you have to check things, and it's also dangerous if you don't. Compared to newer lithium batteries, gel batteries are a lot more dangerous and have to be maintained and monitored a lot more. So off-grid has had a lot of problems, so to speak, because of these things. People have invested a lot of money in off-grid with gel batteries, and then over time they find out that the maintenance is just killing them. So it becomes not much fun, and a lot of reinvestment in new gel batteries when the first batch breaks down, basically, because gel batteries don't last for long. So it's not a big investment in the beginning, but the problem is that you have to buy new ones all the time, or at least know how to clean them, or rinse them, which most people don't. And it's a big process anyway. But new lithium battery systems partly or wholly solve this problem, because now actually manufacturers like Alpha are releasing off-grid functioning on their hybrid systems, and they use the latest lithium batteries. So that's one of the big changes for solar now. Already this year, there's going to be products coming out with integrated lithium batteries that are made for off-grid. So that's a very encouraging and really good development that we can look forward to, that actually makes off-grid systems more user-friendly and just a lot better. So that's something that I definitely looking forward to. In the past, I've not really been interested in installing off-grid systems because of all these problems. But now that we're getting these new systems, I think it's a lot more interesting. So looking forward to that. Okay, that's a small introduction, guys. Off-grid certainly has a lot more topics, and we will get to them. But this was a small introduction.